It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining me for episode number 201. Yes, 201 shows. Hope you had some time to enjoy show number 200 we did last week, which was the highlights of some of the guests we had, like Lee Strobel, Josh McDowell, and several artists, several comedians, and it was just a helpful information that we were able to provide you. So thank you so much for joining us for that. And let's see. If you notice, you don't see any post from me on social media other than promoting the podcast or where I'm going to be next, just because what's going on in the Holy Land right now for the last 152 days right now of people being murdered, killed, and starved and all that. So that's why I have not been posting any comedy or anything like that. So is it affecting my business? Is it affecting my calendar? Oh yes, it is, big time. It's weird. You think like, oh, just no, no. Social media does. If you're not there in the face every day, it just it does something, which is fine. You know what? I'm here in California, and there's people dying in the Gaza Strip and being murdered and starving. But that's just makes you a little bit give up on humanity. I've never shared this. I mean, I don't share politics. I'm not a politician. I'm a comedian. But it gives. It's hard to look at. You lose faith in humanity, but it just throws you closer to the Lord. I am closer to the Lord today than I've ever been, and that's a great place to be. And it's sad that it takes this to get us to that point. But last Sunday, I was speaking in San Diego area, Carlsbad, at a church, and I was sharing about surrender. How to surrender completely to God, and I want to encourage everyone watching and listening. The best thing you can do is surrender completely to God. And I wrote this sentence. I said, surrender to God is like a dance and a wrestle with God. Sometimes you're dancing with God. He's telling you, okay, let's go this way. One, let's go here, let's go there. And you do it and you follow the steps, and everything is great. It's like a dance, but then it's also sometimes it's a wrestle where he goes, let's go here. And you go, no, I'm not. Let's do this. No, I'm not. And that's where we need to surrender completely, because God's will for us is a lot better than our will for ourselves. And if we know how loving God is, what a wonderful Father He is, He would not do stuff to harm us or hurt us. Even though many times people think if I surrender completely to God, I'm gonna be completely, you know what, he might send me to Africa, he might do this to me, he might do that to me. uh you know what, that's a deceitfulness of sin. That's when sin hits you and lies to you and tells you that God is going to harm you, it's going to ruin your selfish plans, he's going to ruin all this and all that for you. But it's not. It's the other way. If God ever wants you to do something that you don't like, he's going to give you the heart to desire it more than ever. If he wants to send you to Africa or India or wherever in the world that's dangerous right now, like Gaza, which you can't go right now, but if God wants to send you there, he's going to give you the heart to desire to go there. So, anyway, that's enough preaching. I'm a comedian. What am I doing? What are we doing here? This is the Laughter for All podcast. So let's get serious. Anyway, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be in near the Sacramento, California area in Angels Camp doing a fundraiser for Kenya, and then the next day I'll be speaking at Refuge in Angels Camp. So anyway, if you're in that area, come join us. If not, I don't know. I'm excited because I have a new friend. I've never met him in person. We've been talking the last, actually face to face today, but we are exchanging emails. He's a young author, and I'm very excited to introduce him because we're gonna learn something from a young man that been through a lot already, and he wrote a book about it. So it's really neat. His name is Noah Asher. He's an author, chaos survivor, a business owner, and a communicator. Noah helps people find purpose within their pain and their past. His new book, Chaos Overcoming the Overwhelming, is a guide on how to navigate through difficult times and come out stronger on the other side. Noah believes that everyone has a purpose, and he is dedicated to helping people find it. So please welcome my new friend, Noah Asher. Noah, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Hey, man, thanks for taking the time. Where are you right now?
I'm in the good, wonderful state of Georgia.
Uh,
Um, I'm on the complete opposite side of the country than you currently.
yeah, Atlanta, Georgia, and you're 3 hours ahead of us, so it's nighttime. Well, it's nighttime here too. But are you in actual Atlanta or just suburbs of Atlanta?
Suburbs.
Is that where you were
Yeah.
born? Were you born in Georgia?
I was born in Georgia, yeah, and lived here pretty much my whole life. So
So what was your upbringing like? Like what was it? You went to, you had a mom and dad at home and everything was normal, or what was it like?
yeah, my mom and dad were always together, and they're not together anymore because my dad passed away. But
Oh, I'm
other
sorry.
than that, yeah, they were together my whole life and upbringing. My mom was a teacher. She's retired now, and um, my dad was in the air conditioning business.
Hmm. And how old were you when he passed away?
It was a year ago, so
Oh,
32.
oh, a year ago. Okay, okay. So you got to, to grow up in a normal home and everything. And when did the chaos started in your life?
About 11 years ago was when chaos really just changed the game for me, and it started when I got incarcerated.
Mm,
And
okay.
during that time, I really started just if you've been incarcerated or if you know anyone who has, it's complete chaos. And in my book, I talk a little bit about my personal chaos, just because I want people to know, like, hey, I've been there, I've done that, and I've come out on the other side. But I don't spend too much time just discussing me because I don't, you know, they don't know who I am, so there's no reason to discuss too much of who I am.
Well, yeah, but people want to know the person to be able to establish credibility to go, why do I want to read this? Why can he tell me and give me advice? And that's where that's important. But so how old were you when you first when you got incarcerated?
Uh, 22.
22. That's hard when you're young, and it's tough. What level of security was maximum or lower?
Oh no, it was it was minimal. It was no
Minimal, okay.
security. Yeah.
But
So
still, you lost control
I
of
was
everything. You don't make decisions, right?
right. Yeah. I tell people all the time I was more scared of the officers than I were the inmates. Just I was actually, it was amazing how God kept his hand on me. I would be around some of the biggest, baddest guys playing cards, and they all wanted me on their spades team because I knew what I was doing. And then they would just, because I would hang out with these guys, no one really wanted to mess with me. So it was just
Right.
God's favor upon me nonstop.
What did your mom think when you got incarcerated? What was going on in her life? Well, how did
She was
she deal with it?
devastated. Yeah, her and my dad were both just very devastated. And the thing is, they never gave up on me. They always believed in me. They always just were on my side. I was very blessed, even while I was locked up. I you could pretty much the only thing your family could send in were books or letters. And my mom sent letters every day, and
Every day.
she would she would even put in, yes, she would even put like Sudoku puzzles in there. And um like I'm very big. I don't know if you've ever heard of author Mark Batterson, but something that
Mark
he
Patterson,
says
yeah, yeah,
is,
of course. I know Mark
yes,
from Washington.
I love
Yeah, he has a church. Yeah, the circle, the
Circle Maker.
prayer circle. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. I worked with him
yes.
before.
Okay, yeah, he's amazing. And one of the things he always says is all ologies point back to theology. And I love when he said that. It changed me with writing and communicating. And so my mom would actually send me in the mail. She would send me like an interesting factoid. So
Wow. One time I've been to a lot of prisons with the prison fellowship, just going there, doing comedy and sharing the good news. And one time I was in a maximum security prison in Indiana, and there's a guy named Andy, and so we were in the yard, and he was just mumbling something, and I asked him, "What is it?" He goes, "Mama didn't come." I'm like, "What?" Because Mama used to come every week, but Mama didn't come anymore. And it was like you
Wow.
see this 19-year-old kid that there's no toughness anymore. It just what the prison does to it kind of crushed some people. But in your case, you're saying it just strengthened you because first of all, God showed you favor with the inmates, and also you're saying that your mom continually showed you love and send you these books and stuff to do that. But were you a Christian back then, Noah?
I would say, a lot of Christians, you may know God, but do you have a relationship with them? And I knew who God was,
Uh-huh.
but it wasn't a relationship like I have with him now. And for me, it wasn't all fun and games. I mean, the very first week that I was incarcerated, I actually tried taking my life. And I
Mm,
prayed, I was like, God, if you love me, you will let me die. How could you love me? That sort of thing. How could you love me um and let me be this miserable? And when my life was not taken like I wanted it to be done, and what I tried to do to end my life, I was mad with God, and then I was mad with myself because I
mm,
couldn't even do it right. And so I sat there in that moment, I sulked for a little bit. And one thing for me, it was like I had to start understanding, okay, I'm gonna start saying like, God, why me? God, why me? And start saying, God, use me. And
mm.
that's when that was like my turning point to go, you know what? Say, I'm in my pain right now, and I'm gonna turn my pain into purpose, and then hope that my purpose turns into a platform. And so
That's
that was
that's
the game changer for me.
that's powerful. That's powerful. Because I know a lot of inmates when they're in prison, some they do come to Christ, but some of them is like it it just it does not build them up like it did for you. It destroys them. So for you to be able to add, so that was like a moment, a chaos moment that God turned it to a blessing where you're able to. I mean, he got your attention that at 22, where he's like, okay, I want to put you in a prison so I can get your attention and turn you into who I want to do. Is that that's
Yes,
what I'm
and
understanding? Is that correct?
that's correct. And one verse that changed my life was Genesis 50:20, and a lot of people know it, and you probably have it posted on your wall somewhere from Hobby Lobby, but where it says the enemy intended for evil, God used for good, and that's normally all we see at Hobby Lobby. But for me, it was the verse doesn't end there. It actually says what the enemy intended for evil, God used for good to save many. And those
Mm,
three words are what I was like, you know what? I believe with all my heart in who God is, and I believe that He's going to turn things around, but He's not turning things around just for me. He's turning things around for me to use it to help others. And not that I can save anyone, but that He's going to use me just like He did with Joseph. And the reality is, I tell people, I was at a book signing the other day, and I was telling people, I said it over and over again, but I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. It's that God took Joseph from a pit to prison to the palace, and his God is my God. So I believe he'll do the same for us. And that's it. That's my little mic drop moment. But that's really what it is. And that's who our God is. And that's what I had to understand, is that I'm not going to allow me to just sit in my pain. I want to find purpose in it all.
now, how long were you incarcerated for? How?
11 months, which is funny. When I got to where I was, these guys were like, man, how long you got? And I said, oh, 11, 12 months. And the guy's like, you're counting months. I'm counting years. And I was like, oh, never mind. I won't mention that again.
But that's still a long time. But so. How are you using that now that once you came out of prison? How were you using that to be able to help other people?
That's a good question. I all of the proceeds for my book actually go to provide copies of the book for prison libraries and rehab centers. And currently, I'm speaking at rehab centers and addiction centers all across America, different cities I go to do events for the book. I'm reaching out. I'm doing some conference soon to do something with the book, and I immediately like let me know the date so I can go ahead and start reaching out to addiction centers and rehab centers in the area because
Now,
that's
are
my
you?
passion. That's where my heart is.
That's awesome. Are you allowed to share your faith there? I
Yeah.
have one or two.
Yeah. I one thing that I do is I always try to make sure that I let people know up front. Um, it kind of comes from my really southern Baptist roots, where we had a gym growing up in the church I was in,
Uh-huh.
and we would tell the community like, "Oh, y'all can come play basketball," and then we'd get them in, and then we'd sit them all down and start, doing this gospel thing. And I was like, "Oh, we lied to them. We said they were going to come play basketball."
Right.
And so for me, I don't ever want to do that with my book because it's like I think about those people who accepted God in that gym, and if they accepted God and they believe in their heart that Jesus is Lord, they are saved. I'm not discrediting that, but it's like I feel like they started their faith off of deception, if that makes sense. And so for me, I let people know off the rip, this book is not a self-help book. It's a Christian nonfiction book because I don't want you to buy it and then be like, oh, he tricked me, you know.
No,
But I
no,
do the
that's
same at these addiction centers and such. I let people know before I walk in the door, like, hey, I'm going to be sharing my story, and my story is intertwined all day long with the hope of Jesus.
that is amazing. And you know what? I just want to answer Cynthia. Well, I don't know how long she's going to be on the show, hopefully, but at the end we'll share this. But said the name of the book is Chaos. And where can you get it? You can get it from Barnes and Nobles. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it anywhere they sell books. So that's it. Let me ask you this. So and that's a good point. That's a very good point. A lot of people don't know, like when we do our Laughter for All concerts at the stadiums or arenas or theaters, we make sure we give people an hour and a half of comedy, and then at the end, right when I'm ready to share the gospel, I ask people, did you get your hour and a half of comedy? They go, yes. I said, did you get your money's worth? Even though it's free shows, I don't charge them for it. They go, yes. I go, good. And then I share the gospel, so they don't feel like, oh, they dragged me in here, and then they try to. That's a very good point. So when you're talking about with people with addictions, how are you relating to them?
I can say I've been there, done that. And
You've been there,
so
done that. You
yes. And so a lot of these people in these centers, they are in these centers because they took some sort of a deal for the most part. A lot of them are in these centers based off of instead of going to prison or going to jail, they sometimes can utilize that as a secondary resource, which is great for when you're talking about rehabilitation. That's what it's all about. And so that's kind of the main goal. One thing that I love is that I remember when I was locked up, we'd have people come in and bless their heart, which is the southern way of saying,
yes,
ugh. But they would come in and they would share, and I'm like, you have no idea what I'm feeling. You have no idea what I'm going through, and that's something that I don't really hear is that they do understand that I've been there, done that, and so they're listening intently. They're listening closely because they want to go, okay, with their notes out, with their notepad going, okay, I want to know how do I truly overcome my overwhelming because I've seen this guy do it. He's living proof that it can
right.
happen.
So how did that happen? Okay, so you're 22 when you were incarcerated. It probably came out when you're 23. And how did you start your life again with probably hard to get a job, probably a bad credit report or something? How did you restart your life at that point?
That's so funny. I moved back in with my parents and I was going to take it easy for a while and I was headed to see a movie and near the movie theater was a very popular hotel chain. And so I went in, I applied for front desk, just hoping, okay, maybe I'll work overnight or something and have a front desk job. Well, they put me at front desk, and then just in 3 weeks, I was promoted to the general manager,
What?
which is crazy. Yes,
In
makes
three
no
in three
sense.
weeks?
Yes,
You're
I knew
amazing.
nothing about the hotel. I knew nothing. I love people, that sort of thing, and so great with
That's
hospitality,
favor.
and
That's favor from
it
God.
really
That's
is the
awesome.
favor.
So you
Um,
you okay, so what was the next chaos moment after coming out of prison?
uh, let me preface with saying in my book, I talk about the chaos that comes is like in storms and battles, metaphor a lot. And I say that we know that chaos is going to come. We know storms and battles always come our way. And so the first section of the book, I talk about preparing. It's
Mm,
about knowing, like, if we knew Hurricane Katrina was coming, right, to the New Orleans area, the best thing to do is prepare for it so
mm,
we know what's coming. And so the whole first part of the book is about that. The second section is called In the Midst. And it's the meat of the book, because if you pick up a book called Chaos, you're most likely in the midst of it. And then the
right.
third section of the book is the aftermath. And so the reason I was telling you all that is because the aftermath is all about rebuilding. It's like once the storm dissipates and the enemy retreats, a lot of times we're left with rubble, and we're left to pick up the pieces. And it can be a not so fun task, but it also can be great in some ways, because you know what? I can pick up a rock and I can go, I don't need this in my life anymore. And I can just throw it away, set it to the side.
Mm,
Um, and then I can build my foundation, a biblical foundation first and foremost, and really, really, really set myself up for greater successes. Um, and so that's what I was doing. And so my chaos was over I put it this way in the book, is that while you may feel like the main storm is over, sometimes while you're rebuilding, you run across some little rain showers,
the
some
aftershock.
little
Yeah,
storms. Yeah,
the little aftershocks. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Uh,
You're from California, so you say
yeah,
aftershock.
we
You know all about
yeah, we don't
you know all
we don't
about
have
that. Yeah,
hurricanes. We have shocks. But
that's right.
let me ask you. Someone that was asking this: how can we help substance abusers let go of the denial of their true condition? That's a heavy
That's a
question.
good. That is a heavy question. Cynthia, you got about 6 hours? No, I'm just playing. But the reason I say that though is because there's so much depth to that. Because it starts with, what is your vice and why do you go to it? What's the reason that you're going for it? It's very psychological. It's getting to the root of the problem. But it's also to say that we have to understand that addiction is a disease. People are struggling, and it's an imbalance. And people, it's good to know if you have family members, like if your father is an addict or your husband is an addict and y'all have kids, let your kids know, because that's one very important thing to let them know, because addiction is genetic and it can carry on. So you need to let them know ahead of time, so it's taken care of before it ever begins. First off,
Mm,
but getting to the root of the problem is first and foremost. Hey, why do you think you need alcohol? Why do you think you need cocaine? It's really asking those sort of questions to see why they started it. And I've met people who simply, they were with some friends, and with their friends they realized, you know what, um let's have some fun. They tried something, and then they chased that high the rest of their life. And that's something about a high, is that when you first do a drug, um you don't you're always going to be chasing that high, because that initial high, you will never have that again. So some addicts simply are just going, I remember that first time I did heroin, and oh, I wanted to have that feeling again, and they just chase it the rest of their lives. Some people simply, they go to the addiction. Cynthia, you just made a point about food addiction. Yes, some people go to food because it's their comfort
mm,
food. For example, they go to it when they're sad, So if you want to fix your food addiction, a lot of times you have to start with, why am I sad? What is making me, go to food in the first place? That's what you have to get to the root of.
That's amazing. Somebody asked, where's Noah from? He's from Atlanta, Georgia. And we got the vibe master himself, Kelly Cardenas, is listening. I've had him on the show, really. If you guys want to go back and watch it after we're done, it's just like amazing. Kelly just was get you excited about life. But that's, yes. Noah is from Atlanta, Georgia. And so you were, okay, so you were in the storm of prison. You came out of that. You started rebuilding your life. Other little stuff happened, and then when did you start thinking, I need to write a book?
Well, some of what I was writing while locked up, I was writing to my parents and to some friends. And it was more of a, hey, you'll get through this sort of thing. We will get through this. I'll get through this. And I didn't even really believe it at the time. But it was almost like therapy. It was very therapeutic for myself to write these things and say, it's going to happen. And so I was kind of just reassuring myself in that moment. And when I got out, I kind of started piecing some of that together and holding on to that. And then
Mm,
I started to really try to see, okay, with this information, what can I do to turn it into something? And really for me, I asked myself, okay, what did I need when I was in my deepest, darkest chaos? And for
mm.
me, I felt like it was hope, it was help, and then it was humor.
Hope,
And
help, and humor. Okay.
hope, help, humor. And I'll kind of go into those real quick. But for hope, the introduction of my book is called, it's a song, but it's called "I Wish You Would Step Back from That Ledge, My Friend." And in that song, it's a rock song, but for me, it's very true to what hope looks like. If you see someone on the ledge, you want to get them off the ledge. And then
Mhm.
you let them know, hey, God is for you. He is fighting for you. He has a plan for you. There's hope for you. This is not all you're going to be. There's more to your life. That's the hope part.
Right.
Then once it's like you get them off the ledge, now it's like, okay, well, I'm off the ledge. Now what?
Now
That's
what?
the help part that comes along to say, all right, well, here's some biblical principles of how we can overcome our overwhelming. And all throughout, I just love the use of humor because for me, I've always had I love humor. And one thing about me is I tell people is if I can make a joke about something, I own that situation instead of that situation owning me.
Exactly.
And I mean, my dad, when he passed away a year ago, my friends at the funeral, they said something, and I made a little quick joke, and they're like, "Ooh, can we laugh at that?" I was like, "Oh, he would have loved that," and that's
Right.
just how it is. And to me, that's one of the biggest slaps in the enemy's face is when I can laugh at the situation. He thinks that me in the furnace is miserable, but what he doesn't know is me and Jesus are in the furnace together, and we're laughing and we're having a good time.
That is amazing. Do you use that when you speak to people in recovery or in rehab, and in prisons? Do you use that, the hope, help, and humor?
Yes, I try
Yes.
to provide hope, help, and humor in everything I'm working on. I'm working on a new book I want it to be completely different than chaos, but I still want to keep to hope, help, and humor with what I present in
So,
everything I do.
so when you came up with the idea, okay, let's help some young writers right now. Okay, you thought of the book idea. I said, how did you start? What was the first initial starts in doing the book, and how did you discipline yourself to tell us about that?
So it started with really biblical principles of going. Let's use Joseph for example. I knew he went from a pit to prison to the palace.
Hmm.
And because I knew that, I wanted to go, okay, I know that I want to let people know there's hope, that you can get out of your pit and you can go into the palace. That's
Right.
the hope part. The help part is adding a sort of principle of like, how did he do that? How did he maintain? he maintained his faith by just knowing that God is going to get me through this, and he could hold on to that. Why? Because he knew who his the God of Abraham, and then the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, and so because of that, Joseph knew those stories. Joseph would have been familiarized with that, and so he knew that his God was real, and so he could hold on to that, and we can do the same because we know Joseph's God is real. And so it kind of, it's like a trickle down, of just the story and what we know in Scripture. And so with that, I like to kind of know point A to point B how I want it to go, and then stuff throughout. Again, Mark Batterson, when he says that all ologies point to theology, I love to give real world examples of saying something from history, something maybe from science. I talk about how how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, and what the caterpillar is doing inside the cocoon. He's wrestling, and it's not some easy process, but he comes out better. And so I like to find examples, real world examples, that can kind of make the points come to life. And so for me, it's like, okay, if you don't, and then if I share something that's personal, it's like, okay, well, if you've never been incarcerated, maybe you can understand the butterfly analogy and the butterfly reference. Maybe you can understand when I talk about how this happened, in history. Or sometimes I'll use, I get called this all the time, I'm the movie king. I can take movies and relate them all that to Jesus. And so I talk about, in the book, I talk about Finding Nemo, and how Nemo's lost, and his dad, Marlin, goes searching for his son. And he finds Dory, and Dory's the one that always forgets things. But she goes, you know what I do when life gets me down? I just keep swimming. Well, that's actually what Paul tells us in Philippians 1:27. Hey, whatever happens in life, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of worship. So whatever happens, just keep praising God. Whatever happens, just keep swimming. And so I can take an example of that too and say, there you go. And so sometimes I'll use analogies like that as well. And so I kind of just pick and choose. Now, I just kind of will write a chapter and let God write through me. And then I just sit on it and try to figure out examples that connect with it. And then some of those moments of epiphanies where it's like, oh, that sounds good. That's tweetable.
So how long the process took you to write the whole book?
I sat on the book. I'd say I sat on it pretty well, solid finish, probably back in 2020, right as everything was happening with COVID, and probably took me about 2 years to get to that point. And I sat on it, and I really hated that I sat on it. And the reason I did was because I want to sit on it long enough so I can say that I rebuilt. And I really felt like God was like, oh, you're never going to be finished rebuilding. There's always room for growth. And just recently I was looking at, in my personal time with God is about the fruit, and how God says that if you're not bearing fruit, he'll just cut off the branch. But if you are a good tree and you are providing fruit, you still have to be pruned, which is still a form of cutting. Either way, you're getting cut. And so it's like you want to get cut for good. And I don't mean the prison kind of cut, like you're not getting shanked. Like
right, you're not getting shanked.
That's my one prison joke for tonight. But no, but that's the thing. You have to be willing to always be worked on. You're always being worked on. And so as I sat on it, I really felt like God told me, okay, dude, I gave you this word, and I gave you this purpose within your pain. And if you're not going to use it to help others, I'm just going to find someone else. There's someone else that's willing. And so at church, my pastor, he'd say something, and if he used the word chaos, I'd be like, what? Like, is he about to use the whole book right here in a sermon? And so I was like, okay, yeah, I got to do this. And that's when, for me, it was just, I got to do this.
Now, did you like when you started writing? Did you have like an audience in mind? Like, oh, I'm gonna. This is the kind of the niche. This is gonna be my marketing idea. Is that to write it for these kind of people, or you didn't?
Well, for me, I wanted to reach out to anyone who has felt at all ever in their life that they were hopeless or helpless.
Hmm.
And because, and that's why the cover, I was trying to see if it would pull up. I don't know if you can see
Let
the
me,
cover
let
on
me, le- I'll tell you what, no, you don't have to do that because I have it right here.
it. You're so fancy. There you
Uh,
go. So,
yeah.
actually, this cover came to me one morning, and I woke up and I started drawing it, and I'm a horrible drawer, and I sent it to my publisher, and I said, make this look cool. But if you see the umbrella and what's written upon it are words. Words like rejection, incarceration, addiction, cancer, illness, loss,
Oh, okay. So that's the
anxiety.
raining. Yeah, that's the raining part is words. Okay.
Yes.
Uh,
And so it's like sometimes you feel like these words are raining down upon you and they're consuming you. And that's really how the cover came to be. But that's who my audience is that I want it to be for people who felt as if they were just stuck in some sort of storm or battle. I'll put it this way. I was in Hawaii one summer and we were on the side of this mountain and the winding road is called the road to Hana. And
yes.
on it, you've been there? It's really
Oh yeah.
cool.
Many times.
Okay. Okay, so you know it's one way. Like one
Yes.
lane, well, excuse me. It's two ways but one lane.
Yeah.
And one day, because it's Hawaii and it's literally a full-on rainforest. And so it just started raining. It started downpouring. And while we were driving, it got so dangerous we just had to stop because we couldn't see behind us, in front of us, or beside us. And so we just had to sit there and wait out the storm. But then before we knew it, the storm had dissipated. We could see again and we could go forward again. And sometimes I feel like we're in these storms that rain down upon us so much that our pain paralyzes us where we can no longer see in front of us, beside us, behind us. We don't know what to do. And sometimes we just have to wait out the storm and know that it will let up and we will be able to move forward again. And
That's
so that's who the
amazing.
book is really for.
That is amazing. You're so wise, Noah. I mean, you're a young man and a lot of people. Now, how did you get a publisher with your first time author?
So it's called Westbow. It's like a Christian hybrid type publisher.
Hmm.
So you work out a deal with them, you give them some money, and then in return, you start getting money as you get uh, books sold. But like I said earlier, the book money does not go to me. I decided that I wanted all the proceeds for this book to provide copies. I tell people all the time, I want to bring the brightest of lights for people who are in their darkest of pits.
That is
And
amazing. That
yeah,
is
so that's why
amazing,
we do
man.
it.
I'm proud of you. This is awesome. What did you stay in the hospitality business after that, or what happened? How did you change jobs?
So I left. I moved up from general manager to director of operations, and then I got diagnosed with lupus. And
Ooh,
yeah, and it was a weird form of lupus. It is a weird form of lupus where it kind of messes with my muscles. And so I was actually in a wheelchair for a while, and it
wow.
got so bad that I just wanted to do something else and get off my legs from all that pain. And so I decided to start my own business, and I did, and it's doing very well. It's like a consulting sort of firm, and what we do are these undercover assessments, which is similar to like secret shopping and um, doing like undercover boss, that sort of thing. And we go in and we help these businesses by seeing how they're acting in real time, so we can then go back and work with the ownership and the managers to give them advice on what they can do to be better.
That's funny. When I first got married, I my wife came from the Gaza Strip here. The first job I got her, it was like to go to restaurants and kind of just have a meal. They'll pay her for the meal. They'll pay her for her time, and she have to just evaluate and send them a report. And at one point, she has to go to the bathroom and check it out, you
Yeah.
know. And she goes, I don't want to go to the bathroom. So I went in and I checked the bathroom and I came out. I said, this is it. So she wrote down, I couldn't go to the bathroom, but my husband did and told us this. And that was the last time they called her. I was like, okay, fine. You're not. But that's a fun job. I mean, for people to go get a free meal. I mean, not what you do as detailed where you go watch the whole restaurant for a few months, but I mean, that job when you go undercover like customer, that's the best job in the world.
Yeah.
So how
I
how
tell
how
people
would
I really fight to get restaurants just so I can eat for free.
now how is the lupus doing? I mean, normally lupus is that does that stay or it's you're able to recover completely from that?
I'll forever have it, and there are flare ups, but for me, it's I changed my diet a little bit, and I started exercising, and now I run 2 miles every day.
So
So
that helps. Praise God. You know, God is watching over you, young man.
yeah, and that's funny you say that. It's so true. And in those moments when there's a song out, a new Christian song, and it talks about how if he told the sun when to rise and it did, he'll do it again. And if he told the stone to roll away and it did, he'll do it again. And for me, I can take real life examples of if he can free me from my past, he can
Hmm.
do it again. And if he can heal me, he'll do it again. And it's just a reminder that God is still working and he's doing things. So when I have those days, because we all have days where we're just
Right.
sad, and we're hurt and we feel sense of loneliness or we feel like we're never going to amount to anything. In those moments, I look back at those things and go, well, God's done it for me then. He'll do it for me again.
That's amazing. And so, have you? Cynthia just asked, my sincere condolences for the suffering of the Palestinians and Israeli people in the current war. Hope you didn't lose a relative. We did. We lost two already, but and 15 from our church. But you know, that's uh, that's a whole different subject. But thank you for your heart, Cynthia. But I want to ask you, Noah. Um, have you considered talking to youth groups and young people? Because that's a generation right now that have no hope. They're hopeless. They just want to sleep. They don't want to get up. They don't have any motivation. Have you considered talking to that age group or reaching out to them?
I prayed, and I've been praying constantly when I talked about how my book talks about people who are in the midst and people who are in their aftermath. And I've been praying like, God, do you want me to help people who are in their prepare phase, in the midst of their chaos or in the aftermath? And right now, I really feel like God has me just really focusing in on people who are in their aftermath. Um, I sit right here in my home office. I actually have a letter from a U.S. senator congratulating me on all we've accomplished, my team and I. But I've also been working with some state senators about a new bill that will make it where everyone does the last 12 months of their sentence in a transitional center or a halfway house. So to allow them to learn true transition back into society. And that's really where my heart and my focus is right now is helping people in their aftermath simply because I know how hard it is. I understand my story is God's favor is upon me, and that's amazing. But I also understand that people don't always have it that easy, and so I really, really, really want people to get the right resources and the right help. And I do believe it starts with better rehabilitation. If we want to stop with recidivism, we have to fix rehabilitation.
So, what would be one step that the country can take to improve that?
Rehabilitation. I would say that one step is uh, each state has money allocated for reentry, and they're
Right.
using it to have inmates teach other inmates about resume building and preparing them for job interviews. And no shade, no offense, but the person teaching my class was a guy who had a life sentence and he had already been down for like 20 years, and he
Mm.
was teaching us the new ways to do interviews. And I was like, I don't think you
You
know,
get it.
you know, I mean, maybe he read a book, so I don't want to say too much, but I just felt like, no, I don't know if this is the right way to do it. But um, it's like the system just wants to say, well, we have it in place. Where's our check? Where's our grant money? Right? Because we have it, we offer it.
Right.
And so it's getting down to the root of rehabilitation, and it starts with halfway houses and transitional centers where we say, all right, the last 12 months of their sentence, we're actually going to let them go get jobs. They have to come back here and live, but they
Yeah.
can go get jobs. They can learn how to make money and truly re-enter society properly. And that helps because I'm telling you, day one, people are going, okay, where's your check? We need your money for your probation officer. Do you have fees or fines that you owe? We need that too. We also need you to have a job. You also need to have a house. Um, and then we also need you to be able to get there. So if you live in a place like mine where you pretty much have to drive to get to your destination, that
Right.
means you have to afford a car. And if you have a car, that means you have to afford insurance. So before you know it, you have to have like $4,000 or $5,000 when you get out to be able to start truly successfully.
And they
I
don't
don't,
give,
and that's
do
the
they give you
basics.
any money right when you come out of prison?
If you don't go to a transitional center or anywhere like that, they give you a wonderful 30 to $50 depending on the state.
Oh. But
So
if you go
until
into
you,
a rehab or center or a halfway home, they pay you some money to help you transition.
yeah, you they help you get a job, and so a lot of times, like when I was in the hotel industry, I was with a very popular hotel property, and a lot of people, you stay at these hotels, you don't even know this, but I hired and I had my general managers hire people from transitional centers.
Wow.
And so we would teach them like the housekeeping, the laundry, the grounds and the maintenance, those sort of tasks. And
Uh-huh.
what we came to realize, I'm telling you, I would tell the owners, I'm like, well, from a business standpoint, it's great on your behalf because these guys and these ladies who are in these transitional centers, they have to come to work. It's a requirement. So, and on the world we live in right now, where everyone's calling out for every little thing, these you know who's going to be at work. your
Yeah.
men and women from the transitional center. You can at least count on them more than anything. So it was like a win-win for both. And you pay them a normal wage, and you get them starting, and then the money goes to the center, and it starts to they have like an account, and it starts to rack up their account. So
Mhm.
on the day that they leave, they're able to walk out the door with that money.
That's amazing. That's a great thing that you're doing. I mean, to be able to encourage even businesses to do that. That's really good. So you're a single man, and if you
Yep.
know me for any, Sarah Vath will second that. I always like to connect people to find a spouse. So, ladies, if you know anybody who's single and that 33 and under, uh, Noah is single. Noah is a
Yes.
wise man. Noah is a Christian man, and so we'll be praying for you to have a godly woman. But Naz matchmaker is coming out here. Yep. See, I am a matchmaker. So what happened is I want you to speak right now as a before. I wanna promote your book and tell people how to. But before that, speak to a young person who's right now in the middle of the storm. What do you What do you tell them?
The best advice is first to let them know, first and foremost, God is for you. And whether you're in this storm because of something you did or something that's been done to you, God loves you. It does not matter. And because of his love for you, he is not going to let you. You may have to sit in the pit for a moment, but I promise you a palace is on the way. And it may not look like you ever thought it would. I'm sure Joseph, when he was in his pit, we don't see it in scripture, but I'm sure, because he was human, I'm sure he prayed at moments for a ladder. Wouldn't we all pray for a ladder up out of our
Yes.
pit? But God didn't provide the ladder. And I could just picture God being like, oh, Joseph, I know you want the ladder, but if you hold on just a little while longer, you're gonna be used to free a nation. And if we look so much deeper at that story, is when he got out, he had an opportunity. He was in a very top level of power, and the people who hurt him, he could have set off with their heads, and they could have ended their lives right then and there. But he
Right.
did not do that. He decided um, to love them, accept them, to push for rehabilitation, um, and reconciliation. And because of that, one of his brothers that he saved was Judah. And who is
Mm.
Judah? Well, he's the great, 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 great grandfather of Jesus. And so because of that, we don't understand that maybe our pit that you're in is, you want that ladder right now, but I promise you, if you just stay there a little bit longer, the palace is coming. And when the palace comes, God's going to take it, what the enemy intended for evil, and he's going to use it for good to save many.
Amen. Now, how many pages is your book?
Um, about 250
Okay.
pages.
And took you two
Yeah.
years to write it, and were you disciplined? Like every day, I'm gonna write 500 words or 1,000 words, or no?
Uh,
No.
I am with this new book. I'm very disciplined with this new book, and I'm trying some new things out. There's things that I'm figuring out about my personal life, and how to handle and juggle everything that I'm doing right now. Even if I go and travel and speak somewhere, I find time to write, and it's just a gift I feel like I did not know I had in school. That's
Mm.
another thing I went back and did was, once I got out, I went back to college and got my degree. And I have professors who will say, "All right, we need a 2,000 word essay," and I'm like, "Oh, 2,000 words." And then I go, "Oh, my book is 83,000 words, so I think I can do a 2,000
I can do
word essay."
2,000. That's
Yeah, so
awesome.
it's kind of
So,
changed, but I never thought I would write at all.
so how can people buy? I know they can buy it from Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but the most profit for the author is to buy it directly from you. Do you have a place where they can directly buy it from you?
It's pretty much the same just because of royalties. If you go on
Oh,
my
okay.
website, I have a link to Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, ChristianBooks.com, Books a Million, Apple, yeah, all pretty much everywhere.
So they just can just put Chaos by Noah Asher, and they can they're able to order the book or to buy it. They can they walk to Walmart or Barnes and Nobles and get it, or just you have to order it online?
Walmart is only online. Barnes and Noble, some have it, some don't. If yours does it, you can uh, reach out to me via email and tell me. I can talk to your local store. Uh, but that was one of the coolest things, walking into a Barnes and Noble and seeing my book on the shelf. I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
that's
Uh,
good.
this is super cool for me. I talked about this at my book launch party. I had a book launch party with all of my team and my family and friends, and we had it at a movie theater.
Oh,
And
that's great.
it had the guys who led worship. I've known them for a long time, so they did some songs, and then I spoke about the book. But I know I keep mentioning Joseph tonight. I promise in my book I talk more than just Joseph. I talk about a lot of other people in the Bible. And but one thing about Joseph's life that it hit me when I was finishing up edits for this book was Joseph's firstborn son was named Manasseh.
Mm,
And Manasseh, he had this son once he made it to the palace. And some people may not understand this because you can read the whole story of Joseph in one sitting. But for Joseph, it was 13 years of his life. And in his firstborn son, once he had made it to his aftermath, he named his firstborn son Manasseh, which means God made me forget.
right.
And it's not that God just made him forget, like where he had amnesia. No, he would always remember the pit, but he also knew he could forget, like he could move past his past and look toward the greater things. And at my book signing event, like I held up this book and I said, "Y'all, this is my Manasseh. This is my
Mm,
moment to say it's part of my story, but it's not going to be what defines me." I talk in my book that the enemy will try so hard to destroy our character, not touch our calling. Our calling is irrevocable. It's untouchable. And the enemy hates that so much that he will pull on anything. He'll remind you that you're lonely and that you need that addiction. You need that something to hold on to. He'll do anything else he can because he knows your calling is untouchable. And in a world where so many, I've listened to your stuff. You're brilliantly funny, but one thing, we live in a world where we talk about cancel culture and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the world may try to cancel us, but it doesn't matter if God's called us. That's where we have to rest, and that's where we have to put our hope in, is that who is really calling the shots here. And
Amen.
I just hold on to God in that, because if it were for the enemy, he'd love to destroy all of me. And one of my chapters, I actually call it "Haters Gonna Hate," and from Taylor Swift. And I say that in the book. I say, we have to do what the wise philosopher Taylor Swift says, which is shake it off. And
Shake it off.
and in that chapter, I talk about the life of Paul and how he went from Saul to Paul. And I talk about the Grinch in that chapter. And one thing about the Grinch story with Jim Carrey is when he comes down the mountain, he's bringing all the toys down, and he goes, "I'm the Grinch that stole Christmas, and I'm sorry." And he holds out his hands. He goes, "Well, aren't you gonna handcuff me, put me in a chokehold, blind me with pepper spray?" And the mayor goes, "You heard him, officer." And then he whispered, he said, I recommend the pepper spray. And the officer goes, "Yeah, I heard him. He said he was sorry." And then
Mm.
the Who's is such a beautiful picture of what the church is supposed to be. The Who's invited the Grinch in and invited him to the table, and they sat down and had a meal together. And I talk about in that chapter how we will come across, when we're rebuilding our lives, we'll come across people who are like the Who's and who will invite us in, like you're doing right now, Nazareth. And then you're going to run across people like the mayors who recommend the pepper spray. But what they don't know is that Jesus took the pepper spray for us all. And because of that, I say, is that it was one of my favorite lines in the whole book. I say, if we don't believe that Jesus can turn Saul into Paul, then we don't believe in the power of Jesus.
Amen.
If you really think about that, it's like, yeah, oh, he's great. He can part the waters, but he can't transform someone's heart. What are we doing? So that's where I
Amen.
rest, and that's what I hold on to more than
That,
anything, is when people
you're
try to, yeah.
you're
So,
amazing. I want to encourage everyone listening and watching to go get the book Chaos. It's everywhere. Walmart, Barnes and Nobles, on Apple. You can get it on what do you call it? Amazon. So it's everywhere. Who's the publisher again?
Westbow,
West West.
West, like you're out west, and then bow, like an arrow, like a bow and
Okay,
arrow.
Westbow, and that's
Westbow.
your first book. Are they doing your second book as well?
Um, my my team would,
Well,
we don't
let's
know.
not talk about it yet.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand.
we
I
can't talk about
understand.
it.
Well, how can people get a hold of you to either ask you questions, invite you to speak at their maybe church, or they know if a rehab center in their area, or near Atlanta or wherever, to be able to have you come and speak to the men? And I want to encourage people also, is to buy a case of books and you go hand it to your people, to your, to your rehab centers.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, some reviews that we've seen come in. I love when I see that people are like, "Oh, I read it, and then I bought 5 of them, and we're doing it as our small group on grief." I'm like, "Oh, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
That's what I want to hear." And so yeah, anytime you can do things like that, that's awesome. But if you
Yeah.
go to thenoahasher.com, thenoahasher.com,
The Noah
you
Ash.
can,
Yeah, okay.
yes,
So let
you
me
can
put
watch some videos of different interviews I've done. You can also see some articles I've been featured in, and then you can also see where to purchase it, as well as like a contact page if you have any questions about the book, or yeah, if you have an addiction center or rehab center that you'd love for me to get involved with, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
so the noahasher.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, here you go. So Well, man, you are so wise. I mean, really amazing, Noah. I'm very proud of you. Appreciate you. Hopefully, we'll get to meet in person, work maybe together someday. I love doing prisons and all that, and these, recovery groups, and it's amazing. I can't wait to read the book, and I want to encourage you, but guys, just get the book, read it, and buy a case, and donate it to where it's needed, and those what do you call it, recovery places, and people who are going through addictions. If you know anyone that's going through an addiction, maybe you can buy them this book and have them read it. All right. Well,
Yes,
thank you
and
guys for watching. Thank you so much, Noah, for
thank you so much for everything that you do and
and
bringing light to some really dark places.
thank you, and thank you for what you do. You're amazing. I appreciate you. Hang on. Well, thank you guys for watching and listening, and you know again, if you're in the Sacramento area in 2 weeks, I will be there. And then if you go to my website, Nazareth USA, you can find out more about it. But really encourage you, get the book, get that book, Chaos, by Noah Escher. Really, really into. If you know someone who needs to hear this podcast, yeah, you can subscribe to it, have them subscribe to it, and watch it. It will be on YouTube immediately. Right now, it's on YouTube. It's on Facebook, so you can watch it right now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and God bless you, and you have a great night. Thank you.